Hi, welcome back to High on Utah. I'm Heather Groom, and today I have a special podcast. It's not actually on real estate today. We're going to have a special guest that you may recognize named Brent Groom, my husband here, and
Hello.
a recent heart attack survivor. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about our experience. We'll probably break this up into two podcast episodes because I want to have Brent share his story in an effort. There's definitely people that are curious, but also just as information because I think what happened, kind of surprised us. And there were things that we didn't expect and we wish we would have known ahead of time. So we're going to share our experience and story. And then in the second part, we are going to talk a little bit more about heart health. And I like to kind of emphasize it in the positive way because when we talk about heart disease, I think people get scared and run off and hide under the couch, maybe. So I want to talk a little bit more about symptoms and things and statistics. And while we're not doctors, we can just share our experience and what we're doing right now because we are fresh back out of the hospital. I think we've been home just a few days. And so we're going to talk and just kind of dive right in. So first, I'm going to introduce my amazing guest, Brent.
Okay. Hello. I am happy to be here.
Happy to be
Yes.
alive right now,
Very.
right?
Yes.
Yes. And that's even probably one of the first things we'll start with is that a
hmm
heart attack can look really different.
hmm
The signs, symptoms when you're having it, but even after, because, Brent looks really good. I think we all kind of envision that everyone's having open heart surgery and it's not always that way. We hope we can avoid that. And that still might be in the future for someone, just statistically speaking, probably for one of us and with our family history. But we also really want to talk about just even right away, kind of what happens because he really improved. It's like, yes, he almost died. A lot of people do. And then now he's eating breakfast, and we'll kind of talk to you a little bit about that. But and you have all these different emotions, even like while we talk today. I mean, we may have tears, we may be laughing. I'm not really sure, but it's been a whole
hmm
spectrum of emotion.
But
So
yeah, we're giving ourselves grace to whatever emotions come up. It's okay for the next 30 days for sure. And
yes, all the feels.
I mean, it's definitely a big adjustment, mentally and emotionally, physically. So,
And to now be part of
mhm,
the heart attack club. I think that's what
mhm,
one of the doctors said at the hospital is it's like now that's the unfortunate club you're in. And so although it is a heart attack survivor, which is also a really great thing. So I would much rather you be part of that club. So I think we just kind of want to start off, what
mhm.
I had in mind, and we really didn't talk about this ahead of time. You got to love marriage, right? So I just threw him down here and said, hey, we're doing a podcast. Um, so I think let's start by first of all, we're going to talk a little bit. We in this first part, I want to talk about the actual like what happened and be fairly detailed on that, and even a little touch on maybe genetics because both your parents maybe can share that, but both have had heart surgeries. Both his
Mhm.
parents, both of my parents have had heart surgery, so that's huge risk factors right there. Genetics play a huge role in everything, and obviously diet, exercise, things like that as well. But definitely genetics is something you need to be paying attention to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my dad had bypass surgery around my age, and my mom has stents, a little bit older. But so it definitely runs in the family, and I've been aware of it for years and watching my cholesterol, watching the calcium score. That's a test that you can pay for. Revere Health was running it was like $75, so it's not a massive amount to get calcium scored. And so I did that several years ago.
And I'm going to pause you right there because most people don't even know about that. And so
hmm
that was something we learned about. Our doctor had actually had a heart issue. And so 2 years ago, and we're good friends with him. And he had talked to us a little bit and he said, this test is usually not covered by insurance.
hmm
It's called a calcium score test. And it also probably has a fancier name, but you could find it information on that, and you can just make an appointment. It costs anywhere from like $50 to $100 at the hospitals, but this is something that I think first of all, I think it should be covered by insurance because it gives you a really good idea on how much, plaque and calcium, like, that you have, from
And
what
it
I
checks each
understand.
yeah, and it breaks it down by each vessel in your heart, so you can see the score on each of the vessels. I'm still learning heart anatomy.
Yeah, again,
I don't know
we
how
are
many
not
vessels there
doctors.
are,
We are not
but
experts, so
they give that breakdown.
right. And so what had happened, even just kind of leading up to this, is we had had some conversations with our
Mhm.
doctor and said, "Hey, we have." I had a heart issue develop, a left bundle branch is what they call it, and so they know I've had some kind of a heart episode in like the last 7 years, and so I've been a little more on the radar than Brent, and so we had talked to our doctor, and he told us, he said, "You really should go in and get this calcium score test." So that's number one for these listeners. If anyone out there, you really should do that. $50 to $100. They give you a score, they break it down, and they tell you by level, like what is concerning. Now, of course, it doesn't guarantee that you won't have a heart attack. It doesn't guarantee that either way. But again, it gives you an indication of if
Mhm.
there is a problem.
Yeah.
And so mine came back really low. And then about 8 weeks ago, probably about 2 months ago.
Yeah, so I had a score done, years ago, maybe 4 years ago, and so I had a good baseline to look at, and then I got another score about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. It was probably 2 months ago now, um, and that came back a little higher, than it had been the first time. And so we talked to the doctor and PA, and we scheduled, a stress test, and so that's where they I think they basically give you, chemicals in your body while you're on, like, a treadmill, and so simulate going through, 1K, 5K walking and, exercise to stress your heart at different levels of intensity. So that way they can see the actual blood flow, and see how you're doing with your EKG. And so
And
that
again,
was
it's all indicators. Like, this
those are
doesn't mean,
that's right.
definitive answers. It's just one of the tests because I did have an uncle that had a stress test and then died of the same kind of heart attack actually that Brent had, like 4 days later. And so it's an indicator, but it does, and he had basically been told, "Hey, everything looks good," and then he passed away. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, these type of tests are they're preliminary tests to get you scheduled with a cardiologist. And so this was still with my primary care physician. Got those scheduled, and then the next step would have been, sit down with a cardiologist and figure out an action plan.
Yes. So, yes, through and yeah, this other kind of next part,
Hmm.
he had his stress test scheduled. It had been canceled because it wasn't approved yet by insurance. And then later, he had rescheduled it and it was actually scheduled for,
It was scheduled for Tuesday morning, the same morning as my heart attack. So
so literally at like 8:30 in the morning, I think, right?
yeah, I think I was out of the OR, and then I could have gone over to the stress test.
Yeah, it was in the same hospital. So literally he
It was
had his
across the
heart
street,
attack
yeah.
just a few hours
Mhm.
earlier than the stress test. So very crazy. But and then we're going to kind of dial back a little bit from there. So basically what happened
Mhm.
is probably going up. Maybe talk to us a little bit about kind of leading up to it.
Mhm.
What were some of the things that looking back now that we recognize as signs?
Yeah, for me, some of the signs the night before we went out and had some good food, with some great friends, and I ordered a Philly cheesesteak, and
I'm not gonna ever look at a
I
Philly
don't
cheesesteak
I didn't
sandwich
do
the
that often,
same
but it
way.
was it
And
was a great place, and it
and it
tasted
really
really good.
wasn't like we
Uh,
don't eat we've been on a kind of this health kick, so we've
mhm.
actually been eating really healthy,
I've been
so
yeah, I have been eating a lot more healthy, food lately. I didn't have the French fries that were on the
yeah, which
table,
I did want, by the way, but I didn't have them either.
or the deep fried mac and cheese. I've been staying away from. I'm trying to eat healthy for quite a while. Um, anyway,
We went out to dinner, but
had
starting with that, you really
the
weren't
cheese.
even
I
hungry.
wasn't very hungry, so I only ate half of the sandwich. Kind of brought the rest home. We were there, chat with friends for a while, and then when we came back, I started having what I thought was heartburn, and had to lay down on the floor for a little while, kind of stretch my back and take some Tums.
Because you were complaining, um, not just of like pain kind of in your stomach, it was also in your back.
Yeah, it was my
It
back and then my chest area, and after I laid down for a few minutes, that was about 5 minutes maybe a little
10, it
more,
was like about 10 minutes, yeah.
but that subsided, and so I thought, nothing more of
Did we
it.
give you Tums at the time? I think we
Yeah,
gave you some
I took some
Tums.
Tums, and I thought, "Okay, this is helping." I just assumed it was heartburn at the time, and then I was thinking next day's garbage day, so I went out to the garage and cut some boxes, and I could only cut a few, and I was kinda tired, really pretty
Just, like, to
tired.
cut them down and then put them in the trash
Yeah,
can,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and so that that
So
made
you
me
were
pretty
really
tired.
tired,
That
right?
made me
Like
really tired, yeah, but I didn't think much of it. They were isolated things, and I didn't tie them together. Um,
and
so
earlier in
then
the day, we're gonna bring up one other
we
thing that
are?
was
Okay.
a little bit woo-woo. We're kind of into the, woo-woo hippie space a little bit sometimes, and so
This one doesn't
and
make
we
any
don't and
sense.
like I said, we don't know how to even say if it makes sense or not. I just can we're only gonna say our story. So
Mhm.
earlier in the day, Brent has, in fact, actually you can
Yeah, this
show
is
it.
the bracelet I was wearing. It's a copper bracelet I wear just for, just kinda helps me feel good through the day, and I had it on my left hand. I was working, and then that was around 9 or so in the morning, and my arm started tingling. I'm like, "Huh, that's interesting." So I took off the bracelet, it stopped, put the bracelet on my other arm. A few minutes later, the arm started tingling. I'm like, "That's never happened
Yeah, so
before."
just to be clear, like because he's worn this bracelet almost every day for
For
probably
a little
2 or 3
while,
years.
yeah,
Oh,
and
yeah, I mean, a while, and
mhm.
so, like, the one side so when you
So
had
it's
it on, it was
never
kind of,
it's
like,
never done
tingly
that
numb.
behavior ever. And so I just thought, so after I was on my right hand, it kinda tingled up my arm. I thought, "Huh, that's weird." And I took it off because 'cause I'm like, "Well, I guess I'm not wearing this today." Um,
And it was kinda weird because
mhm,
then I had my, one of my stone necklaces on it in the
mhm.
garage, and, I plugged in my car battery, and it shattered all over the car, and the reason that this came, up is because then he came out to help me pick up all the beads because I was almost in tears because it's one of my favorite necklaces. It has, like, a labradorite stone and a bunch of stones on it, and when I plugged in my car to charge it, it just shattered. And it looked like it almost had like a little burn, which kind of does make me wonder, not to get too crazy, but I'm like I'm starting to wonder like if there's any kind of electrical exchange or something that happens when you plug in your car. I have no idea. Again, this is just our experience, so take it for what it's worth. But he came out, and that's when he told me. He said, "Man, my copper bracelet's really bothering me today. I don't know what it is, but I can't wear it on my left arm and I can't wear it on my right arm, but my arms are like kind of tingling." So anyway, so proceeding, so we kind of, I know, have kind of gone back in time, but
We went back in time,
but
good,
you
but
did have some kind of just tingling.
yeah, I was tingling just for a few minutes, and, then I took the bracelet off and switched it, and then the tingling followed the bracelet, and again, I took it off, and so it was only a few minutes each time, and I
And
just
then you
thought,
were kind of
"Huh."
tired that day too, because you were a little
Mm,
bit like you were just like, I'm just feeling a little off. You
yeah.
just felt off. That's
Mhm.
all. And so when we had gone out to dinner with friends, we'd had a really good time with them. And, like I said, he didn't really eat much of his food either. He was just like, I'm just not really feeling well. And so then we get back home, you take the Tums, and we usually go swimming at night. And I like to do laps. And so we've warmed up the pool, and a lot of times we have our other friends come over at night, and we just do a quick swim and then go to bed. And so he laid on the floor for a little while, and then it kind of went away, like you're in
Mhm.
like the
Yeah,
feeling of
yeah.
indigestion.
After I came back in, after the cardboard boxes, took out the trash, and kind of was relaxed, and then we went in the pool for a while, and, I didn't exercise in the pool, I just kinda took it easy.
Yeah, this is when I'm such a good wife, because then I was like, "Get going, do your laps with me," because I always do laps. So I was like, and he's like, "I don't know, I'm just not feeling up to it." And so I threw him a floaty. I mean, I feel a little guilty about this, but I was like, "Okay, here's your floaty." I was like a pool noodle, and I was like, "Here, just do some kicks or something while you hold your pool noodle," and I was like, "I'm gonna do some laps." And so anyway,
Mhm,
so I did some laps, and then
mhm.
and then you even looking back, you probably had a little sign too in the
Yeah, in
pool,
the pool, I was
maybe.
just standing on the side at one point, and my chest hurt for a few minutes, and my arms tingled a bit. But again, it was, about 3 minutes,
It
really,
really
is
wasn't
all.
long. Like, and again, these are things that I think are normal at like things that happen. It's just maybe putting together the dots now. And so, basically, didn't feel like really swimming, and you were like, "Okay, no, I think we're
Chalked everything up to heartburn.
yeah, just kinda
Mhm,
maybe it's
mhm.
heartburn and,
And an off day. Yeah.
yeah, and just kind of a stressful day." And so
Mhm,
so anyway, then we finish, swimming.
mhm,
We went in the hot tub for a few
mhm.
minutes,
Yep.
and then, we get back inside, nothing out of the ordinary, just our normal kind of night routine, and then
Mhm.
you let's see, so then it was middle of the night, and this is the part that also is a little crazy, and like I said, we can only share our experience, but Brent, I think, is somehow stuck with me for life and beyond because, I'm the one that actually woke up in the middle of the night at
Mhm,
3 AM, which I never wake up in the middle of the night. Like, I could sleep through, like, a tornado or something. And so I woke up with just excruciating chest pain. And like I said, I have no idea how to explain this, but it was so severe. I had chest pain and then in my back. And it was so bad that I actually had to get up out of bed and I walked around the house a few times because only standing was the only way I felt better. And Brent was like, I think maybe we're gonna have to take you to the hospital or something.
mhm.
And I just said, I don't know what is going on. This is just like so severe. And so I took some Gaviscon. And I just thought, oh, I chalked it up for dinner or something.
Mhm.
And every time I went to lay down, I've tried to lay down like 3 times and at least, and every time I just start getting really a lot of pain again. So then I'd get up, walk around a little bit more. So I mean, we were up in the middle of the night, which was weird because we usually are not. And so that was from about 3 to 3:45 I was having a lot of chest pain. And like I said, I mean, you
Yeah,
were
I was close to pulling the trigger and just going to the hospital.
taking me
Mm,
to the hospital,
yeah, for
which
Heather.
is
Yeah.
kinda crazy.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
so, again, like I said, I don't know how to explain this, but anyway, and then all of a sudden, it abruptly ended for me. Like, it was like 3:45, it just is done, I feel fine, and I said, "Okay, I think we can go back to bed and go back to sleep."
yeah.
So, we go back to sleep from, like, 3:45 to about probably
We're
about
thinking
5
probably about
AM.
6:30 now
Yeah,
because
yeah,
we went
well
in pretty fast.
I don't know. We need to probably look back, but it was somewhere around we went to bed for at least an hour, maybe hour and a half or something. And then Brent woke me up and he was like, "My chest pain is back."
Mhm.
And he's like, it just is really severe." And I was like, "Man, these cheesesteak sandwiches, man, what is going on with this?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Man, good thing I didn't have the French fries, right?" And so anyway, we just yeah, like he was but he was not really consolable. I think that was what was a little different is this time it was like a lot, different. It just seemed different. Like, even when I was trying to talk to him, I could tell he couldn't totally register what I was saying. Like, there was a little bit of a delay because he was in so much pain, and so
Mhm.
he was like, "I just have so much pain." He kept telling me he's got so much pain, and maybe why don't you take
Yeah.
it from there?
Yeah, it was really intense pain, and I had, I had to lay down on the ground for a little while, and then, thought I had to go to the bathroom with, like, a vagus nerve type thing,
You
and
can
then I
just
was
tell my
sweating.
listeners, you can just say, "Man, you thought you were just gonna
I
lose
was
it
gonna lose it.
all
I
out,
mean,
all ends,"
it was
you
bad.
know?
I was sweating, and so then at that point, I said, "Heather, we either gotta call 911 right now and get an ambulance, or we go get to American Fork Hospital as fast as possible." And so I went to the car. I probably wasn't
Well, this so
I
just right
went and
there.
got in
So
the
wait, I'm
car.
gonna say my perspective for a second. But what I when I did notice it was a little different is because he just couldn't get comfortable
Mhm,
and like not even anything at all. And he really thought he was gonna throw up. He had like a little throw up bucket ready. And I was like, "Yeah, if you need to, just yeah, throw up or whatever." And I was trying to console him, but I could tell it was a little different. And then he said,
mhm.
"I'm sweating." And that was again another sign that I've since learned.
But it was
And
interesting. It was the sensation of throwing up, but it was not because of the
food throw up.
stomach. It wasn't from a stomach problem, no.
It was
It was
just that
definitely different.
sensation,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah.
And then he, basically was just this, I noticed and I remember touching his forehead and his head, and he was sweaty. It was kind of like this little, like kind of like a cold sweat. And, and it was different than anything I had seen. And so he said, I think you may have to call 911, which he's never said that before. Or he said, or call an ambulance. And he's like, otherwise we have to go right now. And luckily we only live like 5 minutes from the hospital, from American Fork Hospital. And so I just said, okay. And he actually got in my car, which was a good thing because and I'm not saying you definitely, if you need an ambulance, you call the ambulance. The only reason I think we did it is because he was still walking. And so he made it to the car. I was in pajama bottoms and like threw a sweater on. And then we went and we were in the car. And even while we were in the car, he was like, drive faster, which I usually never have Brent tell me drive faster. Okay. Ever. Cause I drive pretty fast. So he was like, drive faster. And so by the time we pulled up, I pulled up just right in front of the emergency room doors, and I ran in and just grabbed somebody and said, "I think my husband's having a heart attack." And they came out, grabbed him, and luckily there were some EMTs that were there with an ambulance. It looked like they'd maybe just dropped somebody off. And part of this, the reason I'm telling part of the story is because he doesn't really remember
Mhm.
much of it. So just remember that,
After I said
like
speed
in
up,
that, do you remember much after
that is
that?
about where things started to go spotty. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
so I just remember
Mhm.
when they came out, they grabbed him from the car. We
Mhm.
went into one of the trauma bay ER rooms. There's like, which I've kind of learned a little more about too, but they have a few that are kind of more just for trauma. And I could tell the nurse actually was just la da da, just kind of la di da. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know if she knew that he really was having a heart attack, but I could tell from just looking at the EMTs. There were three of them at the time, um, maybe four, and I could tell they were pretty sure that he was having a heart attack. And by this point,
Mhm.
it's interesting because you still kind of are in your head, kind of going, "Oh, is it really? Is it not?" You're and it's just all so fast. That was the biggest thing I can tell you too, is it just happens. Everything happens so fast. And so we go into the kind of trauma bay,
Mhm.
and I don't really, it's interesting because when you're in there, and I had been in a trauma situation before when Carter, our middle child, had stopped breathing as a newborn, and I'd had to do CPR, and it was very traumatic, and actually twice. And so I had it kind of triggered some feelings. And the reason I bring that up is just because I think I'm still a little struggling with that right now, because it's brought up some of the same trauma feelings that I had during that period, because Carter technically did die and then they brought him back. And so it was very traumatic. But you know, we were in there, and one of the things we should talk about actually when we were
Mm.
at home, sorry, we're kind of jumping all over, but
Mm.
I want you to talk a little bit about when you were feeling the symptoms, like what you did with breathing.
Mhm. I've been practicing breathing exercises. I mean, we all breathe, but
That sounds really
right. So
funny.
it's weird to say, but there are so many different variations of how to breathe. During the day intentionally, or for meditation, or to think about your breathing at night. With the nose. And so I've been reading about these things for a little while and
This
practicing.
is like the last three
Uh,
years.
yeah.
You've been really diving
hmm
deep into it.
Yeah. So when I told Heather to speed up, that was the last thing I kind of consciously thought about, like, the other, like, of this world, kind of thinking about, caring about, let's get moving. And at that point, I'm like, okay, I got to focus on, like, taking care of my body for a minute and not getting too much anxiety, and just really settling down and calming down. And so I started practicing my breathing. Um, I don't know how much difference it made. It probably helped a bit,
It was
but
like Brent was, and I was trying to practice with him a little bit, but he was, and even I would give the specifics. You were doing like four.
so I breathe in like 4 in and 4 out at first, and then I started extending the out. So it'd be 4 in, really slow, 4 count, and then 8, and then going, and then it went up from there. I don't even know
You were pretty
how
much, I
high it
think, while
went,
we were
but
in the ER, you were at like four and then 10 out.
yeah.
And so Brent was in kind of a meditative state. So, I mean, he wasn't totally there, which was good. And in fact, I think this is actually one of the things that saved his life, because he was able to slow down his breathing. Because if you're in this situation, the very worst thing you can do is panic and even start breathing faster, and that's the tendency. And so Brent just even while we were driving in the car, I was like, okay, breathe. I remember saying that.
Mhm.
and I was trying to stay calm while driving really fast. And, and then just listening to how he was exhaling, because then he was like doing longer exhales, and I was like, okay, breathe out. And so we were practicing that, and just
I was conscious enough to take my ring off. So I have this Aura ring that I've been wearing for since March, and it's been really fabulous to track, my sleep throughout the night and my heart rate, oxygen levels. But
it,
for
it
some
did
reason,
say, I did see something on his phone. Actually, this is kind of a funny moment. I saw something come through on his phone, and it said, you need to take it easy tomorrow. That's all I
yeah,
remember, is that there was like a little notification beep that came through, and I was like, okay. And this, at the time, I still didn't know if he was having a heart attack, but I was like, yeah, he does need to take it easy tomorrow. I think that's
it
for
is kind
sure.
of funny. Yeah. So anyway, so I took this off on the way to the hospital and just left it in the car. I'm like, well, I don't want to wear this and see any history of what actually happened.
It actually would be kind of fascinating. I kind of wish you would have left it on,
But
but that's okay.
they probably would have taken it off.
Yeah, they probably would have. So anyway, we're at American Fork Hospital, and the reason I'm filling in the gaps again is just because Brent doesn't remember much at kind of this point. But he'd been breathing really deeply, and I was trying to kind of keep him calm. So I stayed very calm and just was like, okay, you've got this, and I just had to be in a positive zone mode of just, you know what, you're going to live. And I remember at one point I did say that to him, and I was like, hey, you're going to be okay. Like, you're going to live. They're here. You've got help. You've got an amazing people around you. And at this point, they still hadn't confirmed it was a heart attack. And I remember at one point I kind of said something to one of the nurses, and I said, is he having a heart attack? Like, is it a heart attack? And what was one of the beautiful things, and I probably will get a little emotional talking about this, was um, watching the medical team just work, and how just efficient and amazing they were. Just because when you're in that situation, I kind of compared it to the doctor was like the conductor of a symphony. And just, he's like, I need a read on this. They're using all the acronyms you don't understand. And then I realized I should have been watching all those medical shows, because I have not watched any medical shows like that. But I was like, oh, I don't know what they're talking about, but I know that is probably not good. So, and they kind of had turned the screen, so I couldn't really see what was going on with his heart. And so, he was just like this, and they would give a report back, and just watching how amazing they were. And, in that situation was so amazing. Like, I knew he had amazing care, and they were just like, we'll have, response in 30 seconds. And they were doing like an EKG, and they were doing different tests. And next thing we knew, he had like, well, you had,
Yeah, they did a good job. They put it in the most sure place that you're guaranteed to hit the veins. And so right
just right in the middle on both
on
arms.
both arms, and they put in two. They probably did that American Fork, I'm
Yeah, they
guessing,
did
so
that
it
at
was ready to
American
go.
Fork. Yeah.
So that way, if one did fail later, they already had something ready to go. So it was brilliant. And like I said, they chose the most optimal spot for them.
For
And
them, like later and during his recovery, he's like, I
and
cannot move my
I
arms,
have no complaints at all about that.
but
Just be
it's okay.
aware
We have no complaints. It was
that
good.
it's very difficult to bend your arms when it's in that spot. But again,
No complaints,
I'm
but
glad
just
they picked the right spot. So
yes, yes. But at one point, I really couldn't stand by him, so I started rubbing his feet. And I don't know why, but just kind of innately, I felt like that's what I was supposed to do. It was just like rub his feet, and I was just trying to calm him down. And I could tell he was in a pretty good meditative state, and they'd given him some,
yeah,
pain
probably
meds,
morphine
and
helps
yeah,
a
the
bit.
morphine probably helped a little
Hmm.
too. They're popping an aspirin in his mouth. They're doing a lot of different things, and
Hmm.
and like I said, but it was really very amazing to just kind of be in that process, knowing that they all had a system. It was organized. It brought a lot of comfort to me, just because I could tell that they knew what they were doing. I mean, and they'd been through this probably before. And so I heard them calling Provo. And then at one point, the doctor he kind of made almost like an announcement, but he just said, Mr. Groom, I just want to tell you, you are having a massive heart attack right now. And he said, "You just stay calm like you're doing, and continue breathing." And I don't even know if Brent actually registered that at the time,
I do.
because
I remember
you
that.
do remember
Hmm.
it. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I just remember he was trying to kind of make sure you knew, and
It didn't
everybody in the room.
change.
It didn't Yeah, it didn't.
anything for, I mean, I knew I was having a serious problem. So I was
Yeah,
just like,
and they told me in there, they said, "We," I think they told me that they said, "We think it's like the main kind. It's the massive, big heart attack." I don't remember how they said it exactly, but I knew that. And so anyway, while we were there, the EMTs basically just said, "Hey, we've got the ambulance here." They were waiting for another one, and they said, "We're not going to wait anymore. We've got to take you right now." We jumped in the ambulance. They took us down into Provo, and by ambulance, like the sirens, the whole thing. I'm in the
mhm.
front seat. Brent's in the back, and he was with an EMT that had been there for,
Yeah, it was amazing.
he was. You do remember a little bit of
I
that.
do remember talking to him a bit, yeah, back and forth, and he was super reassuring and calm, and he made some, dad jokes that he tells over and over, I'm sure, um, but it was helpful, right? He was very good. I knew he was professional, and I was in the best hands that I could be. So that was it comforted me, and
Yeah.
the driver, I'm sure, was going, I kept hearing the horn honking and honking, which, I don't remember, like,
And
in the
luckily, we
day-to-day,
didn't
if
have a
your
lot of
ambulances honk,
traffic. I
so
mean, this was now it is exactly at
yeah.
7 in the morning because I
Mhm.
looked back, I snapped a photo because you don't really think of taking photos at the time. I didn't take any photos at all until I took one when they were loading him in the ambulance at American Fork, and then when they took him out, and it
Mhm.
was just a quick little, like I just had my phone and just flipped a quick picture just because I don't know why. I think it's because I regret not having more photos from when Carter had his trauma. We didn't take like any photos, um and kind of looking back, it almost, I feel like, helps you a little bit.
Mhm.
So anyway, but they literally took him straight up. Like, I mean, we only walked through the ER. We didn't stop, and we went straight up in the elevator. They told me in the ambulance, they said they're all prepped and ready to go. And the second we get there, he's going to go in for like emergency surgery. So we walked in, and literally, like, I mean, we're talking 3 minutes is what I think we figured. It was like from the ambulance to the OR, and there was a whole team, like, right ready to go. And there is one part you do remember from that.
Oh, yeah, I remember them switching me from, the bed from from the ambulance onto the operating table, and I was just laying there, and I heard some music. I like country music, so I said, "Oh, that sounds like country music," and it was pretty good, and then I said, "I really like Imagine Dragons."
And if you know Brent, he's obsessed with Imagine Dragons.
So
Okay.
I was hoping that they would, like, change the channel or whatever it is on Spotify to put Imagine Dragons, but
I don't know if we
I
did, but
was
we're okay with
I
that.
was
Country was
asleep.
fine.
I mean, I remember like 20 seconds of the whatever country song
And then
this
he was
was,
gone. He
and
was just that was like the last thing. But
I
but
was
I
asleep.
I
So
do
yeah.
remember at one point in the American Fork ER, because that was it. Like, I had one little window where I remember I could see his eyes. His eyes were totally dilated. They looked black and totally dilated. And and I thought he could maybe kind of see me and
Mhm.
register. And I remember I just said, "We have a lot of living to do. You know
Mhm.
what? We have a lot of living. You're going to make it." And I said, because we had just talked about how we
Yeah,
want to
we had
live
just
to
talked about
100.
it like, oh, a week or so before, how we want to live as long as possible. We have an amazing life together, and I want to spend time with Heather. We have an incredible kids, and grandkids, and want to be part of that life. And we have amazing friends and family, extended and close. And so that kind of definitely,
Yeah.
those thoughts went through my mind a little bit on the way to the hospital, and just through meditation. I'm like, I don't want to be done.
Yeah,
I
and I
want.
think there's a big
Mhm.
mental component also. Like, I mean, when you're in it, and so I just remember, but just looking at him and saying, "Hey, we're living a great life, and we're gonna live to 100. We just talked about it.
Mhm.
We're living
And
to 100."
I don't know if
Like, that was
I don't know if I had that
non-negotiable.
option to choose at the time or not, but I didn't really even entertain it, and so I just was like, no,
You're living.
I want to live. Yeah,
And so,
yeah.
I barely had a chance to just give him a quick kiss, and that was it. And I said, "I love you," and I said, "I am seeing you in just a few minutes," because I wanted to just talk like that and just say it. And so then I went into there's kind of like this other little waiting room for I think it's like if trauma or something. And so I'm all by myself, which was also a little bit hard because it's like you're trying to process things. And one of the things that I learned, and we're going to talk on another episode a little bit about things that we've learned, but I realized like I didn't have Brent's like boss's phone number. And like I looked in his phone and he keeps it in a different app. And, and so I couldn't find his phone number and I kind of panicked for a minute about that because I was like, how am I going to contact his work? And like, what do you do? And I know a few names that he works with, but I didn't really have their phone numbers. And so one of the things I'd really encourage you to do is, get at least one or two phone numbers of somebody that works with your spouse so that if anything does happen that you have somebody you can contact right away. But anyway, I'm sitting by myself in the waiting room, and then I joke around because then a few minutes later, somebody comes out, kind of in the surgery gown kind of stuff, and he comes out and he talks to me, and I joke around because I'm like, he looks like somebody I probably could have babysat when I was like 15 years old, so he's definitely a little younger than I am, and I'm like, oh. And he's like, I was like, are you the nurse? And he's like, I'm at the cardiologist. And I was like, oh, okay, great, and so he told me, he said, this is a big heart attack. He said it was 100% blocked. And then there was a blood clot. And he said, he's really lucky he's alive because this kind of heart attack is often referred to as a widowmaker heart attack. It's kind of like the typical one see or you hear about. We all know somebody who's just all of a sudden had one and they just die. They fall over and they can't be revived. And he said that's what kind of heart attack it was. It was 100% blocked. And he said in rare situations, people can circulate enough blood, even if the heart is not pumping, like to go around in the smaller veins and capillaries and stay alive. And that's what I think, happened here. And that's what he told us. He said it's just, basically he was able to circulate enough blood to stay alive, even though his heart wasn't, fully beating. And he said, so he's very fortunate because that's not very common. And I think some of that is due to just kind of staying calm and the breath work and everything as well. And just even, and again, there are friends of mine even that have had spouses that had this kind of heart attack and even relatives. My dad's dad passed away from this exact heart attack. They call it an LAD, or again, a widowmaker. My dad's dad died when he wasn't even 40 years old. He was like 38 years old. My dad was, I think, 3 or 4 years old. And he had just died. He was a farmer in South Dakota and died. And then my dad's brothers have had this same kind of heart attack. And, even though they had different heart surgeries and things. And so there's definitely a genetic component as well. But again, it's about a 12% survival rate. And so an LAD heart attack is very, again, it's instant. It comes on fast. And when the doctor was talking to me, he just said he's just really fortunate to be alive. And so he said, you'll be able to see him in just about an hour. He said, we're just going to take him back. And they put in a stent. And so he didn't have to have open heart surgery, at least yet. And they put in a stent and he said it's going to open it up and he said he's going to feel a lot better. And that's the other thing that was a little bit of a surprise is how the rebound actually has, definitely you've got to take it easy, but it's amazing what they can do.
Oh yeah. I mean, when I came out of surgery back to the room, the adrenaline was probably still going, many drugs in the system. And I was thinking to myself, wow, this is fast. And I thought, well, I'll probably be home and working and, on Friday. And, that was a little optimistic.
A
Let's
little
just say.
overly optimistic. Yes.
And then, throughout that day, I did eat. But, then the medicine started to wear off. That night was pretty rough. I only slept, 3 hours or so, and all kinds of emotions, were going through my mind, what ifs and, um, anxiety about things that, fears. And so, I had really good nurses, and they said, they came in and talked to me, especially ICU. They're, um, almost one-on-one care. Um, and then the PT, the cardiac physical therapy team as well, so good. And they help talk through all of these emotions, and like they say, this is what you may be feeling. These are things you probably are feeling. Be thinking about these things. And then, when they moved me out of ICU, again, incredible care with the nursing staff and support staff, and the cardiologist doctors. Amazing care, and they think about not just your physical well-being, but about your emotional and other things that you might be thinking about. And grateful for the care that I got, and the people that were around me
Yeah,
at the time.
and also just, they told us right away, they said, you know, "You're now part of this kind of heart attack survivor club," which is a great club to be in, and they said, "You've got, these resources," and they said, "In the coming days, you're gonna meet with, um, and we're just figuring this out right now. I mean, this has only been a
Mhm,
few days, and, they're like, "We're gonna talk to you even about diet and physical therapy and,
mhm.
talk about cardiologist and then upcoming tests and to look at your whole heart, um, and probably imaging and things like that." One side effect, if you don't mind sharing too, is just I'd say like maybe some of the side effects that you've kind of had. But I mean, again, we're so grateful, but it's definitely, I mean, it's trauma, right, on your
Mhm.
body.
Definitely trauma, and yeah, in the next episode, we'll also talk about, like, communication.
Yeah.
Um, this is an episode for me, right? But if I had passed, who knows where I'd be, but I wouldn't be worrying about these kind of things at all. Um, and so the partner is extremely important to keep in mind, and so that's been moving for me. Like, we've had so many friends that have not only asked how I'm doing, but they ask how Heather's doing as well. And I mean, it's such an important thing because, there's emotional things for the patient, but the partner is also going through a major life what if and life changing event, and so it impacts
Yeah.
everybody in the circle. So
I love that you said that because that was a lot of support for me. I didn't post about it on social for a little bit, and then I think it was like later that evening or later that afternoon I posted something. Mainly, I think people are going to find out or whatever. But I also just I think it was in an effort to just I knew I needed that support for you. I mean I was glad that you're alive and also it was really traumatic and so I think it was just really overwhelming the number of people that reached out or
mhm,
people that said oh my husband had one or they know somebody or different experiences and offering of support and that has meant the world and it's a lot for, the other person on the other side, and while this, Brent's recovering, we're trying to figure out what the new normal is going to be, and so that's, really there's a lot of unknowns, and so I think that has been, a little scary, but at the same time, we're grateful, and again, going back to just the medical care, it's like we're gonna have resources and people to help, and I'm very grateful for that. So we're
mhm.
gonna just kind of wrap up today this podcast.
Yeah, the side effects real quick. We
Oh
can do
yeah,
that.
yes.
So, yeah, a couple of side effects. I had some eye vision things going on. As soon as I got out, I had trouble focusing. Vision was blurry, and so I kept asking, to get care for that, or have to talk to a specialist. And that's not the type of thing that they had on hand. We got it scheduled. We at least got it on they put a request out, but we couldn't get anybody at the hospital. So when they discharged me, they set up an appointment immediately, and that was really helpful. Um, for them to
Because
help line that up.
your eye, just to be
Um,
clear, your eyes wouldn't really focus.
mhm,
And I had noticed it right away, but after Brent hit was even having his heart attack, his eyes looked different. And then the first day in the hospital, I noticed it looked like one of his eyes was almost a little bit like a lazy eye and it like a
mhm.
little drooping. And he wasn't able to really focus on me. Like his eyes just looked really different. And I think that also kind of freaked me out a little bit. And where he works, he's a computer programmer and he's at the computer and he's like, I have to get my eyes to focus and I can't get them focused. And it just was a massive shift in vision to the point where the first eye exam, actually, he was off by almost a full point. His
Mhm.
vision was very different. So we're not talking a little bit. So that was hard. It's improving every day, and we don't know long term like what that's going to look
Mhm.
like, but there has been at least some improvement, which is
Yeah,
good.
that's good. And then, just the other, biometrics pieces, like my resting heart rate before incident was, average 50s, 60s. And then, when I was at the hospital doing, pre-light couple walks around the floor, pre-walk, it was like 102. After walking the floor, it was like 106. So it didn't move the needle much, but it was definitely already high.
It was just like you
Um,
were exercising. Like, I
Yeah,
mean,
and,
it's like
tried to go
even,
sleep at night,
yeah.
and I could feel my heart pumping like it'd been through something. So,
It was like he was
it'd
just
been through a
like kind of
marathon, right?
lightly jogging, all day.
And so that's, that heart rate, has been elevated. That's slowly coming down. Body temperature at night, that's where this ring has been really helpful. It tracks that and shows what my body temperature is at night.
And by the way, if you have I think it's a Platinum
Mhm.
American Express,
Yeah,
you get $200 off,
yeah, on
like
this ring.
on the Aura ring, which is
Mhm,
really cool. And that's why we did it. One of our friends had actually told us right before Christmas about it. They said, "Oh, we have this, the Platinum Amex, so we got, an Aura ring," and we're like, "Oh, what are those?" Because we just started to hear about them,
mhm.
and so anyway, so Brent
Took
we
me a
bought
week
it.
or so to get used to wearing it, but after that, I'm kind of hooked on all the biometrics that it provides, and I look at it every day. And how many hours of sleep did I get? How much was I in REM sleep? How much was deep sleep? And then it tells restful. Tells you your heart rate variability, which for me has been a really good indicator of day health. If I get a higher HRV at night, then I feel better during the day. So those are
Yeah, and then just
some of the side
I'd say,
effects.
like,
Yeah.
even side effects right now, it's just, kind of processing, but
Mhm.
also, we were already eating pretty healthy,
Mhm.
but we're kind of trying to right now he's doing little walks, like, you're doing, like, is it 3 or
Yeah,
4 walks a day? Like,
cardiac physical therapy, they gave a 30-day, plan, and so, started with, like, 4 minutes of walking 3 to 4 times a day, and now today I've gotta do 10 minutes, 3 to 4 times during the day, and then it keeps stepping it up until I'll be at, like, 1 45-minute walk, by the end of the 30 days, and then the recommendation there is to do, 45 minutes, at least, 45 minutes, 5 days a week.
yeah, and so we're
And kinda
just
stay
going
there.
to, I think so many times it seems overwhelming to start a health plan. We've all started some really aggressive health plan. And what I'm really dedicated to right now, just for me, my own commitment is just movement every day. And so it doesn't matter what your age is, what you're doing. I think too often it almost seems overwhelming, like, oh, I need to hire a trainer, I need to do this, or I need to start big. I'd say start small. And we've just been better lately anyway about doing more movement now that it's, warmer outside. I've been
Mhm,
swimming. I love swimming. And so it's just movement for me and getting my laps in and moving around. And like I said, even if you don't do laps, just move and walk, just do something. And I think, it's a good reminder that, for you know, however long humans have been around, they've moved, right? Every day. Like they had
mhm,
movement. And we're kind of in this newer generation where we sit a lot. We drive, we sit at computers, we, do work that way. And so it's a good reminder that we really are built to be moving. And, I think that's great. And so Brent's,
mhm.
getting his walks in. I am too. And, we're doing like small things right now. And luckily, we'd already been trying to eat healthier as well. And so, but we're trying to get used to whatever this, and we're open to this new normal of what this is going to look like.
Yeah.
Because we made this pact, ironically, like the week before this event, that we were going to live to 100. And so we're just thinking on that path. And
Mhm.
so I think it's, hopefully it's helpful for you as well listening to this. And hopefully it'll help save somebody's life, and even if you can improve your health every little bit every day, just do something. Make, a few more healthy choices than you used to do. I think
Mhm.
that's the reminder that I would have for you.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
so thanks for tuning in, and we're going to have a second episode in just a minute as well. After that follows, just about other signs and stats, and it'll be um, kind of just some information and things that we're learning as well. So
Okay. Well,
um,
thank you.
thanks for being here,
Thank
Brent,
you for
and
putting me on the
not.
hot seat.
You are welcome, but thanks for staying on
Mm.
Earth right now, planet
Yeah.
Earth. So I'm glad you're here. Love you,
Love you.
and we're gonna live another 50 years. So thanks for
Mhm.
tuning in to High on Utah.
Okay. Thank you.